Hello, hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome again to another installment of Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, supernatural, paranormal, and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I'm your host, Miss Bumblebee, and today we're going to the lost recesses of Ohio, a place we've been before. But this isn't going to be just Ohio because it's going to extend into Michigan. It's going to extend into Connecticut. It may have origins in Austria, but regardless, today we are talking about Melonheads. Do you know what a Melonhead is? A lot of people don't. It's not like a prominent cryptid. It's not like a mainstream. It's not your Bigfoot or even your Mothman. Because the concept of a Melonhead is really not attractive. Like Mothman is. You know how sexy Mothman is? And everybody thinks Mothman's sexy. You know how that is? Yeah. It's like that for Mothman, but it's not like that for Melonheads. Melonheads look more like Jason Voorhees without his hockey mask. They're not pretty folk. And what are they and where are they and why are they called Melonheads? Why do they look like Jason Voorhees without his mask? Well, there's a lot of folklore, so that's going to take us a good hour at least just to dig into that before we start. And I'm going to stop and we're going to look at locations and stuff along the way. So, if that sounds good to you, let's get started. We are going to be doing Melonhead time. Melonheads. There we go. This is Uncle Perry telling us about Melonheads, the real story of the disfigured cannibalistic creatures. All right, we're going to make this happen. Let me know how the sound is, audio and all that stuff, if there's a problem, obviously. But buckle up. It's Melonhead time.
One misty evening, as darkness crept over the small town of Kirtland, Ohio, three friends, Jake, Sarah, and Mike, decided to uncover the truth behind the legend of the Melonheads. Armed with flashlights and a map of rumored Melonhead sightings, they ventured deep into the forest. As they trekked deeper, the trees seemed to close in around them, the air growing colder with each step. Suddenly, a rustling in the bushes made them freeze. Jack shone his flashlight towards the sound, revealing nothing.
Are we having problems already this morning, kids? Beauties and bees. Beauties and bees. Let's keep it together. We don't need to swarm. We have okay, did I lie about it? Okay, so what are we talking about here? Just a second. Let me get caught up. Oh, hey, Spooky. I guess I could have said good morning to everybody. But yeah, I usually do. I don't know why I missed a beat this morning. Got a lot going on around me. I'll just say that. But let's be civil and be cool. Don't distract the stream from the topic. But I do like a little spice in the side chat. So feel free to disagree with me or about the subjects that we're talking about. But let's make sure we stay with the Melonheads today because I'm excited about this topic. Dave, I gotta ask, Dave, is everything okay there in Ohio? Like, are you guys okay? Do you need anything? Good morning, Spooky. Good to see you, Spooks. Sandy and Sumami are here, so I'm pretty sure my chat should be handled. The chat should be handled because, yeah, I got top-notch, moderation staff. Al Trucker, yeah, you're good. We're good. Let's continue on. Melonhead time.
But shadows. It's probably just an animal, Mike whispered, trying to sound brave. They pressed on, their nerves fraying with each passing minute. They reached an old, dilapidated building, its windows shattered and walls covered in graffiti.
This must be the place,
Sarah said, her voice trembling. As they approached, they They heard faint, almost childlike whispers coming from inside. The friends exchanged worried glances, but pushed forward, curiosity overcoming fear. Inside,
Okay, so I don't know about anybody else here's childhood, but did your else childhood include this, like going out to the haunted location or cursed building or whatever in the middle of nowhere? Did you do? It's not really urban exploration. It's more like rural exploration, or urban exploration when you were a youth. Let me ask. Let me do a poll. See if anybody did urban exploration. And I didn't do it legally as a kid either. I'm gonna say right now, we trespassed and stuff. We were stupid kids. But I love it. I do. I miss doing it, honestly. What you can find out in the woods sometimes, like even here's a place that's not trespassing that because it's my aunt's property, so I'm allowed out there. And we go hiking in the woods, and just in the middle of nowhere, there's just this little phone booth-sized building with all the wires coming to it, but none of it's active anymore. It just has surrounded by light poles with wires coming off of it, and it's full of, like, fuse boxes and switches and stuff. And it's the old power station back when they lived off the when basically that was a grid by itself and had their own little independent power station that they had control over. It's really kind of neat to go way out there in the woods and find something like that. But sometimes we find mansions, old mansions that people built, back in the late 19th century, early 20th century that just sat and got dilapidated. Old cabins, old foundations, barns. Even in the little town I lived in, because I lived in a Midwest town, like that was in the 90s when after Reaganomics started killing the economy in the Midwest. There were a lot of abandoned old buildings that we would explore. So this is familiar to me. You'll notice that I watch a lot of the stuff where people are exploring buildings or caves and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I'm into. I do like going caving and things like that. Matter of fact, up until last night, I was going to do a caving episode. The reason I didn't was because I contrasted it to last week where I talked about the giant bats, and there was some bat stuff in there. And I'm like, I'm not going to double up on bats now. So let's go on with Melonheads.
the air was thick with decay and the smell of something long forgotten. Their flashlights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Suddenly, they heard a low growl, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps.
We should leave,
Jake urged, but it was too late. The door slammed shut behind them, plunging them into darkness. The whispers grew louder, surrounding them. In the faint beam of his flashlight, Mike saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at him. "Run!" he shouted, but as they turned to flee, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Its large, misshapen head illuminated by the flickering light.
Look, I know maybe some of the other pages that you might visit are a lot of debate stuff and in the side chat and whatnot, but at least during Cryptic Corner, we're gonna focus on cryptids, and this time, right now, we're gonna talk about urban exploration. But you gotta see what I'm talking about right here with the Jason Voorhees look, right? Y'all see what I'm talking about? So I don't like to just be, I'm kicking you if you're gonna, be a believer or whatever. This isn't that kind of space. I love having believers here, so I don't want it's easy to not be toxic. It's easy to not be toxic. That's what I'm saying. Let's be cool. Let's not be like Melonheads, because Melonheads are toxic. Wait, you'll find out why.
Melonhead reached out, and the friends felt a chilling sense of dread. The only sound was their own racing heartbeats, along with the haunting whispers of the Melonheads surrounding them. Would they escape the clutches of the legend, or had they become part of it?
Yeah, if you want to get into religious stuff, just stick around the show, because the next segment of the show where we're talking about Tucker Carlson and Ray Comfort and stuff, maybe more what you're looking for in content. But I also cryptozoology is my favorite thing, so I generally start here every morning, get my engines going, because I'd say on a list of topics they're my favorite. Cryptozoology is probably right under phylogeny, which phylogeny is just the study of real animals, and cryptozoology is the study of undiscovered animals, right? Phylogeny is the ordering. You put phylogeny, ecology, and biology together. That's kind of my bag. Now I cross it over with folklore and mythology too, to bring you the content that we have here today. So, Cryptic Corner, we talk about an animal or like a cryptid, or sometimes it'll be a ghost or an alien thing. It depends. The folklore takes us all different directions sometimes, but there's always something at the core of it that we want to try to understand and explore. So stick around for that if that's what you're into. And then we go to and then when we get weird with it, we do the same thing, except for it's people making claims instead of some activity or the claim itself. We generally look at people making weird theories where they make really weird assumptions. That's where we get weird with it. And that's where we're going to see Tucker Carlson. And then I wrap it up with Bree's Bestiary, where we find folklore and we kind of parse folklore and fact and fiction, because history, the further back you go, the more blurred the lines between folklore and history get. And we pick an animal and we explore its history and folklore and interaction with man, all that good stuff. So stick around for Bree's Bestiary at the end of the show for that. This is what we do here. Thank you so much.
If you're not from Michigan, Ohio, or Connecticut, you may not have heard of the Melonheads. In the dark corners of American folklore, few tales are as unsettling and pervasive as the legend of the Melonheads. They have huge, bald, bulbous heads, just abnormally big fucking noggins.
So, and this kind of hits close to home to me too, because my Uncle Roger, say uncle, but he was never an adult, because he was a hydrocephalic baby in the 1950s. My dad would describe that they kept him in a hospital, and he said his body was tiny, like a child's, but his head was like really huge, kind of like what you're seeing on the screen here. That it was hard to look at. He didn't live but for maybe I don't want to say 5 or 6 years, but that he wasn't really part of the family because he was kept in the hospital the whole time. And this was a common thing. Hydrocephaly is a serious condition, or like water on the brain. I mean, it may look like, oh, it's just a big head, but there's a lot of like the skull's really thin. It's just like the people who elongate their skulls their skulls are really thin, but the skull's really thin. Obviously, there's things going on inside there that just and the folks that have this condition are generally, if they're responsive at all, they're not very interactive, or have trouble with tracking interactions. It's kind of sad.
A couple of articles I saw described them as mischievous with razor-sharp teeth, thin, spindly arms and legs with abnormally pale skin. A lot of the sightings occur while people are driving. Their headlights will catch a small glimpse of hairless heads sticking out of the woods in Ohio, Michigan, and Connecticut.
Is that what you see out in the woods there, Dave, when you're out in your garden and you look out over the hillside? You see little melonheads running around on the hillside being chased by grassmen? Do the grassmen and the melonheads coexist? And how do they relate to the frog, to the Loveland frog people? Ohio's weird. Why y'all so weird?
Each state has its own version of the story, yet all share a common thread. The Melonheads are the remnants of twisted experiments and tragic fates. In terms of aggression, most sources say they are incredibly aggressive. Others claim they are rather docile due to inflammation and mental illness from their swelling heads.
Which is more tracks with what people with hydrocephaly would, hydrocephaly? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Hydrocephaly. But that's really, they're generally more docile people. They can have bouts, though.
The Ohio Melonheads are probably the most...
John, don't you run over any Melonheads. There's no Melonheads in Texas, though. The other John, Eyes on the Road, definitely, because Texas has its own cryptids. Y'all have, like, a sheep squatch, a goat man, of course, you got your chupacabra. We got that Texas grizzly bear we're going to talk about later, too.
Most well known, with a sinister doctor who allegedly conducted grotesque experiments on children in a hidden asylum. According to the lore, these children developed swollen craniums in a feral nature. Eventually, they escaped into the surrounding forest, where they now lurk, emerging occasionally to terrorize those who get too close to their domain. In Michigan, the Melonheads...
So most people with that condition, though, do have trouble holding their heads up altogether. Especially... I mean, I couldn't imagine someone like with that condition trying to survive in the wild, or surviving in the wild, or even being, in a more natural environment, like in nature, with someone else taking care of them. I can't see the survival rate being really high for someone with that condition, because, and that's not to say that they can never hold their heads up, but if they do, if they're managed to, it's in a very limited capacity and for very short amount of time.
are said to have been the result of an orphanage fire, where children fled into the woods to escape the flames. Over time, they are believed to have mutated due to exposure to toxic chemicals from a nearby industrial site. These Melonheads are known for their freaky, high-pitched cries that echo through the trees, making many a man have a need for clean drawers. Connecticut's version of the Melonhead legend...
Yeah, Dave, and that's what my dad called them, too. Actually, he called his brother that. He called him a waterhead baby. He said he was born a waterhead baby is why he couldn't leave the hospital. When I was a kid, I didn't know what that meant. Now I know, but that's just what they called it for him in the early 1960s to help him understand. I guess that was the common name for it. But much like some of the other names for other conditions that have been used in the past, I don't think waterhead baby is like appropriate now. I think would be kind of like using like the R slur for someone with a learning disability. But I don't know for sure. They're not people that there's a large population of, or that would probably be able to articulate any kind of offense in the first place. That's why I'm not using that term. But my dad did say that he did call his brother by that term. I'm not sure about its application though, so I don't want to be up here making slurs about anybody with a medical condition. It's just is the main thing.
Enters around the towns of Shelton and Trumbull. Here the story takes a darker turn with accounts of a deranged family known as the Melonheads. This family, driven to madness by isolation and inbreeding, developed the characteristic enlarged heads and a taste for vengeance. Some versions of the tale suggest that they prey on unwary travelers, seeking to avenge their tormented existence. Despite
And that crackliness, that's on the video. I don't know if it's supposed to sound like he's peeking or if it's supposed to sound like he's sitting by like a campfire. Maybe it doesn't sound like either. It just sounds like just a crack. He's got like a crackly mic. But I just wanted to let y'all know that's not something I can fix or adjust out.
the regional differences, the core of the Melonhead legend remains consistent. These beings are the tragic products of human cruelty and misfortune. Their presence is a grim reminder of the horrors that can sprout from bullshit science, environmental neglect, and isolation. There are many folks that attribute missing person reports and mutilated animal parts to the Melonheads. As you delve into the eerie...
And as I was saying and thinking about the struggle that someone with this condition would have surviving in the wild at all, them being able to overpower a hiker or something in the forest. Yeah, it doesn't seem like a thing that's gonna happen. I mean, maybe they got really jacked, like they had to survive, so that they were only skinny like that because they had to I went to elementary school with a kid with an abnormally large cranium, but I don't think he had hydrocephaly. He just had a big old dome. Yeah, I mean, there's people that do. I went to Princess Anne High School, and they had a West Wing full of these big-headed fellas. Yeah. Sounds like a campfire story to me. Yeah, I think so too, Maya. By the way, did you all see Maya's last night? It was off the hook. We had Dr. Kip in there dropping like all these facts about oh my gosh, it was so much fun. I was learning all about dynastic Judea and stuff like that. I learned a lot last night about the history of that region, which I'm always eager to learn about because I love mythology. We talked about Asherah and El and Yahweh. It was really fun. Thank you for having me on, Maya. I always feel I get imposter syndrome when you pull me on a panel like that. I know I hold my own with my ecology and cryptozoology, but yeah, it's just so cool that you would put me on a panel with Dan and Kip and Dino and Tap. Oh my gosh, those are such cool people to hang out with. I don't know Riverboat Jack though. I'm gonna say that right now, so you'll have to fill me in on who that is. Do I know Riverboat Jack? I don't think I do. But cool that you were on there. Yeah, Jay was talking about the Linsky experiment. Oh my gosh. And we were talking about evolution and some of the cool, more visual displays they have for it and stuff. But yeah, go check that out after this show. Don't go there now because I'm trying to do Life in the Hive about Melonheads.
World of the Melonheads, remember that legends are born from a kernel of truth. Whether you believe in these tales or just dismiss them as mere folklore, the haunting presence of the Melonheads will linger in your mind, making you think twice before venturing into the shadows where they're said to live. Stories about deformed country people who keep to themselves go back to 1800s Europe.
Now, when I go bald, I have a tiny head, Sumami. My head's like a little bitty head. Not like Andrew Tate small, where it's like freakishly small, but small, and it looks smaller with no hair on it.
For example, a large family of Melonheads supposedly once lived in Bavaria, Germany in the mid-19th century. Moreover,
oh my gosh, I wish I could tell you guys what happened in the after show last night on Maya's, but I can't, but it was like so cool. You will have to wait, but it was awesome. It's something I've never got to do in my life, and it's like a big thing. Yeah, it's gonna be so cool. And once it comes out, I'll be like, this is what I was talking about. But Maya knows what I'm talking about, though.
Inbred family of Melonheads, known as Weebleheads, were said to live outside Risbury, England, around 1900.
Yeah, Weebleheads.
The Melonhead stories of Ohio are primarily located in the Cleveland suburb of Kirtland. According to local lore, the federal government commissioned Dr.
All right, is it
Crow
map
shortly
time?
after World War II.
It's map time, I think. Let's just do it, because we need to... He mentioned Kirkland, so we can go to Kirkland. Are we in Kirkland here? Yeah. Okay, so this is Kirkland. All right, and this is the road. Wisner Road. Right? Now it runs a good distance through forested regions. If we drop down on here, we can't even drop down on that part of it at all. Is that Wisner Road? Yeah, here we go. We have to drop down on it way up here. It's pretty thickly forested on both sides, right? So, the theory that some people had, at least, about some of the sightings was that people were seeing an albino moose through the thickets, or maybe even a baby albino moose through the thickets, and wasn't sure what they were looking at. But as you can see, this is a pretty dense forest area, and would be difficult to navigate with a normal size head, yet alone trying to make it up and down and among these pines. And look at these, the power lines running right down through here to make it through this forest with a giant melonhead. So if the melonheads are real, more power to you, Mr. Melonhead, because that's some hella navigational skills.
To treat children who suffered from a rare condition known as hydrocephalus, which causes large pockets of water within the brain. Crow ran a small institution of sorts for these children and donated not only his services, but also his home in the woods for the venture. The government sent him these children purportedly in the middle of the night. His thinking was that he was doing a good deed and a great favor to society. According to one version of the legend, Crow had devoted his life to helping the children, who were ostracized from the community due to the size of their heads. People are just assholes, aren't they?
I think the idea with the moose is that the head and the snout of a moose and the swollen human head poking out of the bushes looks similar. I think that's the claim. Why it's they go with moose. If they see a white head sticking up out of the bushes, maybe it's a moose snoot instead. Because a lot of the good morning, Logan. I guess a lot of the explanations are flimsy, but a lot of the sightings are just of the head sticking out, I suppose, is where that comes from.
Crow took mercy on these poor children and allowed them to live with him in the woods, shielding them from the cruelty of the outside world, where he studied them and searched for a cure. Unfortunately, Dr. Crow died of natural causes without finding a cure. Unsure of what to do next, the children simply decided to hang around the old buildings. While the house is now nothing more than ruins, legend has it that if you can find your way back there, you might encounter a melonhead or two. But don't fret, if you do spot one, chances are they'll just stand there and stare blankly back at you. That's creepy.
That's probably right. It's not creepy if they have... So, I get it. When I started working in medicine, it was to work with developmentally disabled folks. And the stigma around so many of these conditions and behaviors makes me so sad. Now, there's not always a person living behind those eyes. There isn't. And unfortunately, there's a blank slate behind there too. But sometimes there is a person behind there, and you have to think about that. And you don't know, so you'll never know if there's a person behind those eyes. Keep that in mind when you're dealing with somebody with a condition like this, or anything. Whether they have cerebral palsy, which a lot of the folks that I was dealing with did have cerebral palsy. When you have cerebral palsy, your brain is basically is sharp and up to date as anybody else's, and it's a physical issue. So, I mean, they're grown adults stuck in these broken bodies, and it have some compassion. They're not creepy. Okay, rant over.
Oddly held version of the legend paints a more sinister picture of the doctor. Crow is said to have performed macabre medical experiments on the children, who developed larger, hairless, bulbous heads and tiny, malformed bodies. Crow is rumored to have injected even more fluid into their swollen brains, causing their heads to swell up like melons. Years passed, and Dr. Crow's insanity raged. The escalating evil spilled out from doctor to patient. The children, those who survived, went mad. The Melonheads set fire to the doctor's house and laboratory, destroying any and all records of the non-sanctioned experiments and deplorable abuse.
See, in that version of the story that I had heard before when I was younger was that these weren't hydrocephalic children, that they were orphans, that he adopted as a sign of goodwill, but he actually did secret experiments on them that made them into the Melonheads.
They were free, but where could they go? The only home they had ever known was gone, as was the only adult they had ever dealt with.
Happy lurking, Kentucky atheist. Thank you for coming in and watching with me. Apocalypse Meow. Hello. Have y'all seen Josh Blue? He's a comedian who has... Yeah, I know Josh Blue. He was in the Last Comic Standing. Yep, I remember him.
The Melonheads took to the woods, hiding together, scared, angry, seeking shelter and food wherever they could find it. They had no ability or desire to communicate with the outside world. You're not missing much. As the years passed, the Melonhead population grew. The ones who survived reproduced, creating more deformed offspring. The insanity was passed along with the physical characteristics.
Just them making it to adulthood just seems improbable, yet alone them making it to adulthood and reproducing and then the kids having the same condition. Because I don't think hydrocephaly is genetic or inherited. I haven't ever heard that before. It's situational. Is what I've always understood. So, but these are mad science experiments, not actual people with that condition. There's no real kids with hydrocephaly or whatever. I keep saying it wrong. Running around in the woods in Ohio.
It's said these Melonheads hate all human beings and occasionally emerge from hiding places to attack folks in the area. They've been blamed for numerous attacks and some kidnappings. Some accounts say they stole livestock, pets, and even children, using them as a food source. Cannibalism was not out of the question in desperate times. There is yet another version that Dr. Crow was married to a kindly woman who was loved by the children.
It can be genetic. Okay.
One night, Crow and his wife were arguing, and Mrs. Crow was killed, either intentionally or by accident, when she fell against the cabinet and hit her head. The children became enraged and blamed the doctor.
Ben, good morning. So the so many different versions of this story, and really there's like the buildings and stuff are, there's nothing there. We just looked at it's heavy forests.
Viciously killing him and burning down the institute. The main Melonhead location is a section of Wisner Road where the remains of Dr. Crow's facility are said to be back in the woods. Accounts of Melonhead sightings have been reported mostly at night. They're described as small.
Good, he changed that crackling sound out for an owl hooting, and I can deal with the owl hooting a lot better than the crackling.
Humanoid creatures with extremely large, misshapen heads. They're in
Ohio eating the cats and eating the dogs. That's true. The Melonheads were who Trump was talking about. Maybe they got mixed up. Maybe they got Haitians and hydrocephalic mixed up as words. There you go.
Hairless with deformed limbs, razor-like teeth, and glowing red eyes.
All right.
Michigan is filled with urban legends and
now we're on to the Michigan Melonheads.
Folklore. One of the most popular legends is that of the Melonheads. The Melonheads of Michigan are said to reside around Felt Mansion, although they have also been reportedly seen in southern forested areas of Ottawa County.
All right, so we do have Felt Mansion on the map, so let me get that pulled over here for us. And we'll also see the proximity from the previous location. All right, so this is the Wisner Road in Kirkland, Ohio. The other Melonheads from Michigan. The Michigan Melonheads come from here. And this is Felt Estate. And you can actually go down here and stand outside and look. There's the estate. Now, there's forest around here. We can kind of roll out and look at now and see what we're dealing with as far as the property and everything. Look at all that woodland. Maybe there's Camp Melonhead in this section of the forest right here. Gives you an idea though of the landscape around and what people are moving through when they're claiming to see Melonheads clamoring around.
According to one story, they were originally children with hydrocephalus who lived at the Junction Insane Asylum near Felt Mansion. As the story goes, after enduring physical and emotional abuse, they became feral and were released into the forests surrounding the asylum.
Yeah, that's what you do when your patients in a medical facility become unruly. You just like, oh, I'm gonna release you out into the wild.
The legend say that the children once lived in the mansion itself, but later retreated to caves in a nearby hill left over from an abandoned zoo. Some versions of this legend say that the children devised a plan to escape and kill the doctor that abused them. It's said that the children had no place to hide.
Almost the same story, right?
Hide the body, so they cut it up in small pieces, which they hid around the mansion, like a twisted scavenger hunt. Rumors exist that teenagers who had broken into the mansion saw ghosts of the children and claimed to see shadows of the doctor's murder through the light coming from an open door. The legend has spread throughout the region.
There's a light coming through an open door that they're standing in and seeing their own shadows? Maybe? Yeah, I do see there's a lot of Gollum-ness to this.
Even becoming the subject of a 2011 film titled The Melonheads. The horror film, based on the urban legend, had the tagline, "Every town has its own monster story. Allegan, Michigan's is the Melonhead." Located in Holland, the Felt Mansion was built in 1928 by Dor Felt as a summer home for his wife. The Felt Mansion became the St. Augustine Cemetery for Boys in 1949. The mansion was a school and a chapel until it was purchased by the state of Michigan in 1977. The state used the mansion as a state police post and later converted the building into a prison. The state sold the estate to Laketown Township in 1995 for $1 as long as they preserved it. The property is listed in the National Register of Historic Places. The Melonheads legend claims that the mansion was an insane asylum which housed the creatures. Visitors
And it never was an insane asylum as far as the history goes. You can look back at the history of Felt Mansion and it's never been used as an insane asylum.
and late-night explorers have reported seeing curtains moving in the windows of the vacant old building with strange noises and shadows darting through the darkness. The government insists that it was part of the Dunes Correctional Facility, a low-security prison that was shut down. Some locals, however, believe that it was once the site of the Junction Insane Asylum. The Allegan County Historical Society has alleged that the asylum never existed
Right.
and is just part of local lore.
Folklore.
Maybe it did exist, and maybe it had something to do with the Melonheads. Stories of their origin
Whenever somebody says something like that, it reminds me of that scene in Wayne's World where Tia Carrere says, and maybe if a frog had wings, it wouldn't bump its ass when it jumped. Right? It's like, maybe it did exist. Yeah, maybe, but no, it didn't. Records say it didn't. We have like records of hospitals and stuff going back to the colonies, basically. So it's weird just to think that, oh, there would be one, and then they erased it from existence.
differ, but one thing's for sure, they've scared the shit out of a lot of people.
Yeah.
I can see if you're there by yourself or with one other person and you hear something you're not used to hearing. Your imagination will start to run away with you, said Scott Kuykendall of the Allegan County Historical Society. Or it could be a melonhead. The vast network of trails in Laketown Township surrounding the Felt Mansion and Saugatuck Dunes State Park are said to be haunted by this mysterious band of creatures.
All right, hold on. Let's go back to the map real quick and look. They said trails around it, which I'm kind of interested in seeing. So is it talking about, are there trails through the forest maybe? I wish I could see more. The location's good for isolation. So I get why they were using it for a prison. I'm glad you're enjoying this one, Captive Desk Dave. I enjoy doing these, I guess we can call them urban legend style cryptids too, every now and then. Where there's more word of mouth folklore than anything else.
Every New England town can claim a ghost, and many have a witch in their past. But the Melonheads belong to only a handful of places. And
I'm going to go refresh my coffee and let this play while I'm gone. Hopefully I don't miss anything cool. Oh, hold on. I got to give a shout out to Apocalypse Meow, because they gave me a $4.99 super chat. Maybe if a frog had wings, it wouldn't bump its ass when it hopped. Yes. Absolutely. Gorgeous. Okay, I'm going to play this. I'm going to go just topping off my coffee. I should be back in just a minute.
southwestern Connecticut. Melonhead stories surfaced in Connecticut after World War II, a time when people moved away from cities into the suburbs. But how did the Melonheads end up in Connecticut? Several variations of the Melonhead legend can be found. According to one variation, Fairfield County was the location of an asylum for the criminally insane that burned down in the fall of 1960, resulting in the death of all the staff and most of the patients, with 10 to 20 inmates unaccounted for. Some of the patients escaped the fire and settled in the surrounding woods. They hunted small animals for food, and when the winter set in and hunting became too hard, they resorted to slaying and consuming.
I'm back, and I have a question for you guys. Still got the poll going on, but I can probably end that poll because we're not really we kind of have an idea. But my question, and I'll put it in poll format, or is, do you know about Bunny Man Bridge? Because if you don't, we may have to cover that in the future. Let me see. Some of this reminded me of that.
The group continued to live in isolation in the woods, where inbreeding within the small group caused the next generation to develop deformities. On the rare occasion that outsiders came into contact with them, they called them Melonheads based upon their appearance. The legend states that the Melonheads' appearance is the result of them having resorted to cannibalism in order to survive the harsh winters of the region and to inbreed.
And this is common folklore in Appalachia too, so you got to keep that in mind, that a lot of these folks that moved up into the mountains came from this region where this folklore was already prominent, right? And some, like as I mentioned before, there were the Weebleheads from the UK. So this folklore is brought over from Europe and explaining, I guess, probably hydrocephalic people at a almshouse or something. An almshouse is what they had before hospitals. Bedlam used to be an almshouse. But the 92% of you all don't know Bunnyman Bridge. Oh my gosh. I am going to have to put together something on that, because that is an excellent example when it comes to parsing folklore and fake lore. Yes. But they would bring the folklore about that over, and then when the mountain people would have interactions with, I don't know what to call them besides the feral mountain folk of the Appalachia chain, which we covered in the Dennis Martin section. But apparently, yeah, there are still mountain men that live out in the far corners, living off the land in, I guess, state parks now. But not a lot of them, not like a secret community of them or anything, but just, vagrant mountain men living off the land, like our ancestors used to, I guess. And when they would encounter them and mix it with this folklore, because those people were also often accused of cannibalism and stuff. They were fingers were always pointed at the vagrant, hermit that lives out in the woods.
Which in turn caused them to develop hydrocephalus. According to a second variation, the Melonheads are descendants of a colonial-era family from Shelton Trumbull, who were banished after accusations of witchcraft were made against them, causing them to retreat to the woods. As with the first version of this legend, this variation attributes the appearance of the Melonheads to inbreeding. Melonheads allegedly prey upon humans who wander into their territory. A number of Connecticut-based legends of the Melonheads have one characteristic in common: the inclusion of a secluded, rustic, single-lane dirt road running through the Melonheads' wooded territory. Many towns in the area have rural and forested sections, and it's not uncommon for these forests to have dirt roads running through them. These roads, at times, are associated with the local variation of the Melonhead legend and are said to be...
Charlie Kirk is a Melonhead? I mean, I've seen some evidence for that.
...part of the Melonheads' territory. In a number of towns, several legends place the Melonheads' territory around a mysterious street known as Dracula Drive. None of the towns that have a Melonhead legend have roads designated as Dracula Drive. Depending on what version of the legend is told, One of several existing streets are mistakenly referred to or coincide with the Dracula Drive mentioned in the Melonhead stories.
And we are going to, yeah, we're going to look at that too. So now we got to move on from Michigan back past, here's Kirkland again, but we're going to the East Coast, and we are going to Southwest Connecticut. We got Newton Township here. And then we have Trumbull down here. Now, the reason I have both these places marked is because both of them are associated with this Melonhead phenomena. They're not that far away from each other, but they're far enough away that it'd be weird if it was like not the same phenomena being recited with a different location. Now, up here, this is an old hospital, right? And this hospital, Fairfield Hill Hospital, used to be Fairfield State Hospital, which was a psychiatric hospital before they started doing deinstitutionalization, and that was like in the 60s and 70s. Because before deinstitutionalization, people like me were locked up, just locked up inside a facility instead of medicated and able to live lives. But if you go down, you can get like a good look at the buildings and stuff. Let me see. Where's the one I wanted to look at? It's the one with the tower on it. I think it's that one right there. Yeah, there you go. So this is the building that is mostly associated with Melonhead folklore in Newton, right? This building right here. That's as close as I can get to it. But that's the one that's associated with the Melonheads. Now, this hospital closed in 95, and some of the buildings were bought out by different companies. This one was bought out by a brewery. But the thing is that there's secret tunnels all underneath this property connecting all these buildings, like underground tunnels, for moving patients between spaces and moving the patient's food between spaces too. Through all these buildings throughout here, they had tunnels connecting them. Isn't that wild? And some of the tunnels have been sealed up. All the tunnels have been sealed up because of freaking urban explorers, which I would be tempted to go down there and look too. But the ones that any of these buildings, when they get renovated, they fill those tunnel sections in when they're doing their construction. But that is not, there's really no other reason why this is associated with Melonheads other than that. But if you got to kind of couple that with, where is it? Where's the prison? There it is. With this, because they combine these two, the Garner Correctional Institute. You can't get down here by this at all. You can't see this building. It's a prison, so they keep it pretty, like, they don't want you to be able to look for chinks in the armor from the outside or anything. But this is a correctional facility, right? And this is the facility that they keep a lot of their mental health patients, I believe, who are in the system. This is where they keep them in Connecticut. Now, this down here, though, is actually what they refer to when they talk about Dracula Road, and that's Velvet Street. And as I drop down in here, you'll kind of see why. I guess the spooky reputation. I mean, look at that. Could you imagine trying to run through that boulder field with a giant melon head? Got snares on the side of the road to catch their prey. Obviously, that's how these are Melonhead hunting grounds. But it's like a lonely little, one lane. Oh, look, there's ferns on the side of the road. They look gorgeous. But yeah, I couldn't imagine trying to run through those woods with a giant melon head. That would be rough. All right, back to the video. We got about 8 minutes left. Yeah. We'll speed it up.
While doing research for this, nearly every article included some first-hand witness accounts, meaning several folks came across these little fuckers. So I read through them and picked out some pretty good ones. The first one starts out, "My name is Tony, and I recently had an experience with the Melonheads. It was on October 5th, 2001. My stepfather, mom, stepbrother, and I were driving down Chillicothe Road in Chardon looking for Melonheads. We had been driving up and down the roads in the same area for almost an hour with no luck. We were just about to go home when we came up to this stretch of road that had fields on both sides and an irrigation ditch running parallel with each side of the road.
So you all used to go around looking for drive around looking for melonheads in Connecticut and Ohio and Michigan.
Just then, I looked out my window and I saw him, a melonhead. He, or it, was running alongside of us next to the ditch. Since the ditch was too wide to jump over, it was running close, like it was about to jump, and then pulling away. At the time, we were going about 45 to 50 miles per hour. The melonhead was actually keeping up with us. It's the $6 million melonhead. It didn't look anything like I'd heard in the stories. He looked about the same height as me, 5'7", and was wearing brown pants which were very ripped up. And where the seams would be, it was held together by what looked like corn husk. It wore a white shirt with brown and red stains all over it. I'm hoping that the red stains weren't blood. What were the brown stains? Its head was a very light brown tint. It had 2 holes in the sides of its head, which I think were ears. Its head was swelled up, and its eyes were very big looking. Just as we turned a curve, it jumped into the woods. In the next encounter, some kids were driving around one day and...
So, yeah, about the Bunnyman Bridge, 93% of y'all didn't know what it was. 6% did know what it was. So this is, the 6%, are you from the Clifton area? Imagine it can't be more than 1 or 2 people voting that said they knew what it was. Are you from that area? Just kind of interested to know if it's because of local folklore or not.
saw a melonhead watching them from the side of a country road. They stopped and the melonhead ran into the woods. They followed deep into the woods and came to an old farmhouse. Man, I've seen this movie. On the porch sat a middle-aged couple and several melonheads. The kids asked what was going on, and the old man explained that he had been a nuclear scientist during World War II. After the war, he married, but the exposure to radiation caused all of his children to be born as melonheads. The government gave him a lot of money to keep quiet and bought him this secluded farmhouse where they could live out their lives away from prying eyes. He asked the kids to tell no one what they'd seen and to never return. Someone told this next story at a party in the summer of 1964. Someone else thought they knew where the...
way back into the 60s, y'all. The Lemonhead in human form. Yeah.
melonheads lived, so we all crammed into cars and headed out to find them. We got stopped by the police in Waite Hill. When they found out where we were going, they gave us a stern lecture that there were no such things and that we should tell all our friends that there were no melonheads. We were taken to the police station where we had to call our parents to come and get us. We all agreed that the police were so intense in trying to convince us that there were no melonheads that there had to be melonheads. If not, why were the police so upset that we were looking for them? The legend of the
If there aren't any monsters in the woods, why are the cops worried about us running around in the woods at night trying to catch them? It's like, come on now.
melonheads isn't the only one to involve deformed or mutated humans. Connecticut also has the Danbury Frog people and the Faceless people of Monroe. Intriguing.
Yeah,
I may do a video on those later on. Let me know in the comments if I should do a video on the Danbury Frog people and the Faceless people of Monroe.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to do the Danbury Frog people or the Faceless people of Monroe as well. Obviously, the Bunnyman Bridge is one that I now have to add to the list.
The Melonheads are not merely a local legend, but an example of the profound power of storytelling and the human fascination with the macabre and the mysterious. Rooted deeply in history and shrouded in a dark silhouette, the legend beckons both the skeptic and the believer to explore its depths.
So, Cuddly Unicorn, I do want to say that there was a proposed state in the United States called Transylvania. It was going to be, I believe it covered part of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Not 100% on that, though. I may be adding a state on there that wasn't on there. But it was somewhere in that forested region, right? And it was going to be called Transylvania. Because, I mean, the name just means beyond the Sylvanian means forested, like Sylvan elves. Sylvania. Pennsylvania means the forest of Penn, which was the fella who founded Pennsylvania. Transylvania, like transgender, means trans. Forest, across the forest, the land beyond the forest is what Transylvania means. Sounds really spooky, right? But it just means, yeah. When you think of it like going along the lines of like a Sylvan elf, though, and meaning forest, it starts to sound pretty.
It's a story that straddles the fine line between truth and the collective imagination, captivating and terrifying in equal measure. As the legend of the Melonheads continues to unfurl through time, it serves as a chilling reminder of the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows, whispering from the silent forests. These tales may be a blend of fact and fiction, though nothing is for certain. They do, however, underscore our enduring attraction to the unknown and the lengths to which we go to confront or comprehend it. In the end, the Melonheads embody more than just whispers of the past. They represent a cultural artifact, a piece of the fabric that makes up the local identity and a mirror reflecting our collective psyche. Whether born from a kernel of truth or the blossom of communal storytelling, the Melonheads continue to intrigue, to inspire, and to haunt. As the legend endures, it challenges us to ponder the mysteries veiled in the heart of the Midwest, waiting in the quiet stillness of the forest, where reality and legend dance in the shadows. If you dig this video, don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe. That way, you won't miss out on more of my strangeness. And I really appreciate it. I also got some pretty kick-ass merch, personally designed by me. The link's in the description.
I wish you didn't look like a cross between, what's the guy's name? The cryptozoologist. Where's the hat? It's gonna drive me crazy. Oh, yeah, there you go. Lyle Blackburn. It looks like a cross between Lyle Blackburn and Steve McRae, right? Look at the guy.
I still got some pretty kick-ass merch, personally designed by me. The link's in the description.
All right.
I got Stay Creepy mugs, t-shirts, stickers, and all kinds of badass miscellaneous shit.
And I want y'all
Until
to
next
stay
time,
creepy
y'all
too.
keep it real.
Y'all keep it real. But when it comes to Melonheads, I think that's all we're gonna do for today because we've done the full thing. But we might go back down here and look at these maps again. So we have them here, Melonheads here to here. And as we move west across the Appalachia with the folks that traveled and settled in this region about 1830s. Here and here, this whole Great Lakes region was really, the 1830s was when it really started to boom. It's actually because in the early 19th century, early to mid 19th century, it was the end of, towards the end of what we call the Little Ice Age, but they were starting to experience a lot of crop failures. There was the year without a summer that happened in this time frame too, which, yeah, that really drove people west to explore because it didn't impact the Midwest nearly as bad as it did the East Coast, which was a volcanic eruption that caused it, right? But the sky was overcast and plants didn't grow and there was no summer. It snowed in July, all the way down to the Virginias, I believe. It was bad and it drove people west. So as they traveled west, they brought their folklore about weebleheads and witchcraft and stuff to explain hydrocephaly and hydrocephalic patients west with them. And when they settled these regions, they took that folklore with them. So I think that's really interesting to way to see the navigation of the story and how it spread. Now, each of these locations probably did have their own situation at some point in history with hydrocephalic people, or maybe a care facility for hydrocephalic people. And they don't advertise places like that, like in the like they do necessarily a hospital. Like to try to make people feel like they're living in a home. So a lot of times these facilities will be like a house, maybe a house off the beaten path, and maybe the kids come outside or they spend, you take them out in their wheelchairs or whatever and spend some time out in the sun. But I don't know if that makes them cryptids, and I don't. This has been one of the weirder ones for me, because I don't even know if to classify this as a cryptid or like a humanoid. It's really just because it sounds like it really just a misunderstanding of a medical condition, which, it's kind of frustrating in and of itself. Anyway, what do you think about Melonheads? Are they real? Are they based on true sightings of feral people with giant heads in the forest somewhere at some point in time, passed down through word of mouth? I don't know. But we will see what you have to say in the comments below. I've been your host, Miss Bumblebee. This has been Cryptic Corner. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time.